kids. What's happening, YouTube? It's your homie S. Dot coming back to you with another video. And today's video is all about the revival of 3Y Prime. So 3Y Prime, if you guys know that deck, know and love that deck. Word to Scott Landis that he's the creator of the deck. Started out with the Wave 1 7-star Optimus, who lets you draw a card when he's in alt mode, and in bot mode he has bold 1, so you didn't really use him for his bold 1 or anything like that, but like he was just that 7-star. He had 10 health and 2 defense, so he was pretty solid all around and helped out a lot. And then, of course, when Wave 2 came out, Rise of the Combiners, we got Hot Rod, and Hot Rod easily replaced the 7-star Optimus Prime. And, of course, that's the deck that ended up taking me to get this trophy that you see over here at Origins back in June, I want to say, in Ohio. So, definitely a great deck. Of course, Battlefield Legend has got a rep for having such low health now with Siege 2 coming out, and like we got cards like Shockwave, Jetfire, and the Galaxy Optimus, who all have massive amounts of health. But I'm playing a couple of cards in here that'll hopefully help accommodate that. And with the 7-star replacement, actually from Siege 2, I think the deck can actually potentially be viable. I do have a tournament coming up this weekend at my local store over here at the Adventurers Guild in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So if you didn't know about that, well, now you know. And if you were thinking about coming out, definitely come out, show some love, and support the tournament, get the community growing for the tournament scene. And we got about six or 7-ish people that come. Well, 4 to 7, I'll say, when we get our maximum, about 7, maybe 8 players. And so we got a little nice community growing, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, so I'm gonna go through the entire deck and the side deck. Of course, you guys, again, this deck is near and dear to my heart. I love this deck a lot, and it may be viable, it may not be viable, but I am gonna probably play it this weekend, so I'm kind of hooked to it right now. And I was playing a Galaxy Optimus list that played Dead End over Skydive. Without further ado, while my kid is all over the place, let's go ahead and jump right into the deck profile. Alright guys, so let's wrap about the bot lineup real quick. So the bot lineup is very similar, obviously, to with the original 3Y Prime deck, except for one character, and we'll talk about him in a second. But of course, we have Flame War. We're not able to shy away from Flame War just yet. She's still one of the best 5-drops, if not still the best 5-drop in the game. She's able to help your other characters defend so well. She's actually so important that they really try to get rid of her, even when they have a chance to attack your best character, so they can turn off your tough for your other characters or even herself. But her survivability is very high, with 3 attack is respectable for a 5-drop, 10 health, and then of course the 1 defense. She spreading that tough 1, that innate tough 1 to the rest of the characters, as long as she's alive, is very strong. You'll almost never flip her to this her alt mode, which gives every character bold 1, including herself. You may do that in some cases where you need to flip an orange potentially, because there is some orange in the deck, or you might use it to be able to flip an additional battle card with Prime when he attacks in his bot mode, because you may want to you do the math with cards that are in your scrap pile and what in your deck, and like, okay, well, I need a hit of the bigger they are, and I have 5 cards left, so I need to flip here to give flipping an additional card, so I have an over 50% chance of hopefully hitting that bigger they are, or a white to extent whatever. So yeah, you'll usually never flip her back. But then of course you got Battlefield Legend. Not too much to say about him, except for the fact that his 14 health has actually been a talk for a while, and it's been noticed that his health has been power crept by the likes of Major Shockwave, Galaxy Optimus, Jetfire with his 20 health, and Lord Megatron, or what is this? Shockwave, and what's the last one? Ultra Magnus. So health, the health pool has definitely jumped up, and some of those characters even have the same amount of stars, if not actually less than Optimus Prime. So Energy Pack, of course, is going to be a very important card in this deck, so you can definitely count on that card being in here, but we'll talk about that here in a little while. I feel like if you do get Energy Pack on him, that's the saving grace, because he'll at least have 18, and the outs that hurt him, I guess you lose a little bit harder if you do get disarmed or you do get reprocessed, because he only started at 14 instead of 17 or whatever with the Energy Pack, or 21 like Galaxy, but he still has a respectable 18, and as long as that Energy Pack sticks, he's 18 just like Shockwave, he's 18 just like Magnus. Is not competitive right now, but you get the point. And plus with his effect, he's very pressuring anyway, and we all know about Battlefield Legend and the legend of the legend. So talking about Sergeant Mirage, now Sergeant Mirage is a new character in Wave 4. Now, what we just talked about the health pool that Optimus doesn't have, having that 17 or 20 or 21, well, Sergeant Mirage does. We've gone from the Optimus, now the evolution goes 7-star Optimus with his 2 defense and 10 health, and then we go to Hot Rod with his innate tough 1, and plus the tough 1 from Flame War gave him tough 2, so his survivability is probably the highest out of all of them, being 10 health and 4 and plus 4 attack in that mode. So he probably still is very great, but very good rather. But Sergeant Mirage has, that extra 3 health that Hot Rod didn't. Yes, he does have 1 less defense and 1 less attack, but you actually flip him and you actually utilize him for his effect. And his 2 effects, we'll talk about that here real quick. So in his alt mode, of course, again, he's a 3/13/1. And when you flip to this mode, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a blue, draw 2 cards. Otherwise, draw a card. So no matter what, you'll be using him a lot. Not a lot, but a couple times throughout the game before he gets KO'd to use that draw ability. Of course, if you hit a blue, that's great. You'll draw 2 and use the pep talk effect. Otherwise, you'll just draw 1 card, and it is what it is. So if you hit a white or you hit a one-shot stand, one-shot fall, or or a white, or I guess I should say a blank icon card, you'll just draw the 1 card. But that's still cool. So yeah, and then his alt mode, what his alt mode does is really cool, and something I actually needed to, I just realized yesterday, this is what I get for not reading the cards fully, and there's other cards I've done this with as well. But here he has the 4 attack that Hot Rod does. He still only has 1 defense, but he still, of course, has his 13 health. And when he's in this mode, while you have a secret action face up or face down, this has tough 2. So something I didn't realize about it is, with some of the cards I'm going to show you, some of the secret actions, even if it's just set and you don't use it, he'll still have tough 2. And I didn't realize that, like the face down part. So I don't have to flip the card to activate his tough 2. So as long as you have the secret action face down and you don't need to use it for that turn because it wasn't triggered or whatever the case is, giving him that tough 2, especially against aggressive decks, is going to be very good. And of course, adding Flame War's tough, that's tough 3. So in like hidden fortification, I'll just save that for when we actually get to the profile. But obviously you can do the math and see that the tough numbers really rise up. So the turn sequencing with the deck is like one of the part I was excited the most about this deck, and it's not the biggest deal, but just showing you how the turn sequence is going to go. Ideally, like I started this deck actually with Skydive and Mirage, and there's a secret action in the deck that I've been wanting to visit that I just haven't actually gotten to yet until now. But it started with Skydive, and you would just start the turn, your game, with flipping Mirage and attacking with Skydive. Now, flipping Mirage really didn't do a lot here, except for hopefully you had a secret action to be able to set with him when he attacks, because on your next turn you're going to flip. So the turn sequencing went with the Skydive deck, attack with Skydive, flipping Mirage and attack with Skydive. Then your next turn you go flip Optimus and then attack with the Mirage here. And then on your next turn you flip Mirage back here to reveal the top card of your deck. Hopefully it's a blue. You'll draw 2 cards. If not, you'll draw 1 and then attack with Optimus here. And then the turn sequencing will go back. And then this is where it got weird, because it's like, well, I guess you could potentially just, well, I'd say that back, it's not that weird. You flip Optimus back here on the wheel turn and grab back an action, attack with the Skydive, and then Skydive defends, and then your next turn you flip here. So it's kind of, I guess, on the next wheel turn, you're behind an effect in terms of wanting to flip the Optimus, not the Optimus, excuse me, the Mirage back down, face down, and I'll draw 2 cards. Now, I know I'm babbling, and I'm going to get back to the point of this version of the deck, because I'm talking about cards that aren't even on the board. But, so the ideal way to play this version of the deck is you're going to flip Flame War and attack with Mirage. And he has tough 1 from the Flame War. He's definitely not going to die. He might take a chunk of damage from an aggressive deck, but overall, he should definitely survive the hit pretty well. And then on your next turn, hopefully that's the turn that you have a secret action. If you don't, whatever. But if you don't, hopefully you have at least a armor to put on him, because on your next turn, you're going to flip Mirage here and set up your Mirage to hopefully have a secret action, get that set, and then attack with your Flame War next. And then on your next turn, you'll flip Optimus and then attack with Optimus, use his effect to hopefully, trigger his effect or whatever, and go from there. And then on your next turn, everybody else is going to stand, and then you're probably going to flip Optimus here to grab back an action, and then attack. And then the thing is, you can flip Optimus here to grab a secret action, and then definitely have a secret action for Mirage. So let's say your opponent is playing an aggressive deck, and you have a hidden fortification in your scrap pile. You'll flip Prime, grab the hidden fortification, set it. This guy now has tough 6. So you're flipping 8 cards minimum, 10 cards with a white. Definitely probably not taking any damage that turn. If so, maybe taking 1, maybe 2, whatever damage, depending on how high your opponent's numbers get. So then on your following turn, after he attacks, then on your next turn, you'll flip. This is where you'll flip Mirage to his alt mode to reveal to draw 2 cards potentially, or a card or 2, and then you'll attack with the Flame War. And then when your Prime is up to attack next, you'll be able to attack with him in the mode he wants to be in and go from there. So at this point, depending on what deck you're playing against, Mirage may be able to soak up 2, 3, 4 attacks or whatever, depending, because he has such high health, and with that 1 defense and tough 1, that definitely helps him out a lot. So that's the turn sequencing. I came up with the deck, and I think it's really good, to be honest with you. I have a lot of faith in this version of the deck, and showing you guys the battle deck and how it's evolved from the 3Y Prime deck. Let's get right into it. All right, guys, so starting out my deck profile, pause the video, and guess what card I'm going to show you first. It's like, no. Okay, so we're going to start off with Security Checkpoint. The only constructive thing to say about this card is you can get it off Optimus Prime. So something that the other big, bad decks can't do right now is retrieve actions from the scrap pile. Of course, they do other really cool and powerful things, but don't ever forget that you need to play your upgrades accordingly, because Optimus Prime, if he's in his bot mode, always threatens to get this card back from your scrap pile, play one of their upgrades, and then play this card. This card was already powerful on its own. Well, imagine being able to get it back from your scrap pile. So if you weren't playing around the time when Rise of the Combiners came out and the 3-wide Prime deck was very, very relevant, well, yeah, just imagine, you're getting bodied by this card before. Well, like I said, the Optimus Prime can add this card back now and play it again. So you could play it 2, maybe 3 times per game, 1 to 3 times potentially per game, and it'll always be very devastating and have your upgrade stick. So, and of course, that double blue, you definitely need it. Next up, we have for one of our 3-ofs, we have Marksmanship. Not too much to say about this. This card's actually fallen out of favor because a lot of decks have their characters, I've noticed, in alt mode a lot of the times. And then there are some turns where I was forced to feel like I needed to play Marksmanship when I drew it. Same with Armed Hovercraft, is like, and you're not going, I want to say you're not going as, with your essential strategies. Shockwave's a little different because Shockwave really wants to focus on discarding cards and all that good stuff. But yeah, just in general, like the Airstrike Patrol deck, like, and even when they flip Optimus or flip Barrage or whatever, it's like sometimes you actually have a better action you want to play and you don't even want to play this. And then it's like, well, you won't be able to use that Marksmanship till 2 turns later, because on their next turn, they're going to flip whoever back to alt mode potentially, and dodge Marksmanship, and then like your Marksmanship's just dead for a while. And then especially if they're playing things like Motormaster, the card's just completely dead because your other characters can't take non-attack damage, and he's in alt mode, so you can't burn him either. Anyway, card's still very good. It's still a Plasma Burst, blue Plasma Burst. Can't live without it. Can't play without it, rather. Part of the range package. I explained a lot more of that than I really needed to, but whatever. Next up, starting our secret actions, we're going to start with Sabotage Armaments, Hidden Fortification, and Step Forward. So Step Forward is the new addition to the fray. This card is very powerful because immediately when I saw this card, I don't exactly know which came first, but when I saw this and then the Mirage, revealed, I was like, oh, this is really good with Mirage. You force him to attack the Mirage, he'll have tough 2. In this deck, him having a tough 2 plus Flame War's tough 1 gives him tough 3, so you're flipping 5 cards. If you have Hidden Fortification, you're flipping 6 cards, like you said. And even sometimes with Sabotage Armaments, I was actually only playing 2, but then when I realized and looked at Mirage's effect again, the fact that you don't have to flip the secret action to get the tough 2 is what really mattered to me. So, and then of course, in general, I'm saying I want to go down to 2 potentially. The thing is, it's like your opponent expects it now, especially like Shockwave decks. Shockwaves should be adapting to not trying to play their double Gamma Launcher ASAP. Their like Terrify Resilience gains more power in that deck because more relevance rather, because you may reclaim and get back that. But so long story short, people are playing around. Even though I gave you the long story, I don't know why I say that. Don't mind me. People are playing around armors more and more these days. Of course, dual wield, is very strong against cards like dual wield and things like that, but mercenaries, unfortunately, aren't super relevant right now at this point with the way I have the tier list in my head. By the way, tier list video coming up soon, so be looking out for that. My opinion on the tier list anyway. I'm going to create a tier list, and we're going to go from there, like in terms of, because there's never been an official one out. We just know what decks are good or whatever, but I'm going to tell you what my personal tier list is. But yeah, so these are the 9 secret actions we play. We actually play a 10th, and matter of fact, we might as well just talk about it now. Is where is it? Can't find it. Here we go. Swerve. So it's our first first black and white icon card. So on white you'll flip 2 additional cards, or excuse me, on attack or defense during battle you will flip 2 additional cards, and then of course that's that black icon. Randomly when it comes up, hopefully you have the bigger they are turn or something like that, and you get that Pierce 5 or whatever. But yeah, so what this card does is when you set it, obviously, and when one of your characters in bot modes defends, you were able to flip that character to alt mode. And what's cool about this deck is, now you can trigger all 3 of these effects, but of course you won't. The coolest way to use this is with Optimus Prime. If there are a lot of turns where you actually want to flip Optimus to his bot mode, to his alt mode, grab an action and attack with him because he has more defense in his mode. He has that extra defense and he's really sturdy in his mode. But with Swerve, you're able to actually keep him in this mode and attack with him, knowing that your opponent's probably going to attack your Optimus depending on the situation. And then you could swerve your Optimus face down, to reveal your face down secret action and swerve your Optimus to alt mode, grab an action on their turn, and defend where you really want to defend at, which is really nice. And also I was shying away from doing this with Sergeant Mirage, but you actually can do this with Mirage too, because you can draw cards earlier than you wanted to. So yes, you won't get the tough doesn't translate to the alt mode, unfortunately, but you can use this card to draw 2 cards potentially on your opponent's turn and, get some value out of that as well. So, as you can see, playing a total of 10 secret actions in the deck. Step 4 probably being my favorite of all of the, well, I lied. Hidden Fortification is broken. I actually thought, I don't even know. I actually might pick Hidden Fortification as my #1 spot over Sabotage Armaments. That's how much I like Hidden Fortification. Has become so important throughout the EI weekend and the other weeks, the weeks after rather, playtesting this card. Even at the Top Deck Games, the last Top Deck Games tournament we had this past weekend, the charity event, yeah, this card is definitely really good. It helps isolate the fact, again, when they bash and shield your characters sparring gear or whatever they have on them. This just like equalizes that. It kind of just negates what they just did with the bash and shield. Even if they play a reckless charge or whatever, this will negate the reckless charge or the supercharge or whatever they're playing for the turn. So 10 secret actions, a 4th on my deck. This is 40 cards, so it's definitely an easy 1/4 of the deck. So you always want to hopefully see one in general. And of course, you can add these back. The number goes up to 11, 12, 13. How many ever times you flip Optimus back and you want to grab one of these are always all access. You have access to these in your scrap pile as well. So really good. Next up, we have 2 the bigger they are. Only 2 because of space issues, but of course, again, Optimus Prime can grab them back. And Optimus Prime is the small dog, actually, in these situations. He gets into, and not Octone and not actually Lord Megatron, because Lord Megatron is actually a star less with more health. Jeez. But you're able to get at Galaxy, Jetfire, and Shockwave. I keep mentioning those 3 cards. Those are the 3 big bad bots in pretty much, like some of the top tier decks in the format right now. And Optimus will actually be able to pierce them all to death, which is really nice. So it was really, I want to, I side deck a 3rd, and we'll talk about the side deck here in a second, but it's very important to potentially have one of these in your hand and play it. And if you flip one off the top, your Optimus will be at 10, 12, Pierce 8. Pierce 8 is going to get in for a lot. It's going to be pretty savage. And it makes me think that this deck can actually potentially take down Galaxy Optimus. I know I'm probably talking out the side of my neck, and that might not be the case, but I'm going to see what's up because I really believe in this deck. Next up, we have one-shot stand, one-shot fall. Now, this is the only blank icon card. One-shot stand, one-shot fall. One-shot stand, one-shot fall. My favorite card in the game. Love this card. Deal 3 damage to one of your characters, 3 damage to one of your opponent's characters. 3 is a lot of times that threshold and that range where you need to be able to KO one of your opponent's characters and potentially steal attacks. In general, it's just a great card, but only a 1-of because we really need to be as blued up as possible, D'd up as possible, defense. And so just the 1, and of course you can always grab it back from the scrap pile. And your characters all have a lot of health, so you can really put this on Mirage and be okay with it, especially against other blue matchups. A lot of times against aggro, this is always very good to when you're, your little guys aren't doing a whole, I want to say little guys because Mirage actually isn't that little, but Flame or whoever, just doesn't get a lot of damage in, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, they still have 3 health, get rid of it. Just very good card all around. But no Plasma Burst in this deck because we have an addition of Sturdy Javelin, which we'll talk more about here in a second. Next up, for our 1-ofs, we have 1 Leap into Battle. Again, for space issues, the original deck used to play 3 bigger they are, 3 Leap into Battle, but of course with evolution comes change, and the secret actions take up a lot of space in the deck, so we're unfortunately able to play a whole bunch of these, but still the 1. It's very powerful even whether you have it in your hand. You probably won't ever grab this back from the scrap pile unless you use it on one of your other characters, or you might use it on Prime. This still gives Prime a respectable 9 attack for the turn. Plus, and that doesn't even count a weapon. So just the 1 for now. I wish I could play a second, and I did have a second in here, but I recently had to cut it for some other cards. Next up, for our greens, we have 1 Reprocess and 1 Espionage. Reprocess is a very strong card, over cards like Vaporize and Ramming Speed, and even Smelt in some cases. I still do like Smelt, but this card, yes, I think what shies people away from this card a lot is its sole green icon. So, on attack or defense, it never helps you for your combat math, for your attack or defense numbers. But just being able to scrap any grade that you want, with a green, is very powerful. What's actually even more powerful in this deck is if Battlefield Legend attacks and flips this card, the ruling with Battlefield Legend and greens. And I think I specifically asked it. I think I asked that question how many ever months ago when Espionage came out, because I'm like, man, if you get Espionage and flip Espionage off the top with Optimus and use it and still get it back because it's a green, because it's not actually considered in play, that's broken. And that was actually the ruling. So if you flip this card and your opponent has 2 upgrades on their strongest character, let's say they have a Energon Axe and a Sparring Gear, well, you can attack with Prime, flip this, play this, kill the Axe, and then add it back as your green. And then, use it again on your next turn, to get rid of their sparring gear or whatever, which is actually really insane. The heal 2 never, I don't want to say never matters. There are turns where, obviously the best time to use it is when you're using it on the character that has no damage on it, because they don't have to heal. You don't have to do both parts of the effects. You do one, and then if they do have health, you heal the other or anything like that. But yeah, and same with Espionage. So Espionage, I think, is going to actually come back pretty strong because it'll be good to call security checkpoints out of your opponent's hand. It'll be good to call War of Attritions out of your opponent's hand because War of Attrition is going to see a lot more play. It's going to be good to call Disarm. Disarm's a big one. So that'll be the way to counter Prime, like Galaxy Prime and just any deck that likes to load up their one character, as much as possible, their best character. So I think this card would be great to counter Disarm, counter the counter. Yeah, be very strong. So just a 1, and is also a white icon. I was only playing 3 whites in here at one point, but I think I'm playing 5 now. So 5 is a nice number, and yeah. So Espionage is very good, just in general, to get rid of your opponents. This is a surefire way to get rid of your opponent's Bastion Shield too. So this is like a pseudo security checkpoint because you still get to see their hand. Yeah, getting rid of the Bastion Shield and playing Sparring Gear or whatever is very strong. So, in my last for my actions rather is Disarm. Disarm, of course, is a card that had a lot of success at the Energon Invitational and the top deck games this past weekend. This card is everywhere in control decks. You don't need this in your aggressive decks. Enforcement Batons and Bastion Shield and Reprocessor are going to be good enough for your aggressive decks. But for this deck, and especially I don't need to play the 1 for space, 2, Prime can get it back. I think I do side deck a second one, so I could always play a second one if I needed to. But Disarm, very good card and going to be very strong all the way through the rest of Wave 4. And that's it for the actions. The actions come out to 23. And then upgrades, we have 3 Handheld Blaster. I started initially with 3. Then I saw Dan's deck, and Dan had cut 1 out. And I also remember the Shockwave deck cutting out all of them, actually. Kai Wynn's deck and Aiden Bax from top 8 at the Energon Invitational, not playing this card. So I'm like, maybe I can cut 1 for space, and it was easy to add another card in or whatever. But then I remember that Optimus only has that 14. I won't say only, because 14 is still a lot, but I guess for a 13 drop, it's not the wave anymore. So unfortunately, you still have to play all 3. I do play like 5 greens in here, so you'll be able to get these out of your hand. Worst case scenario, you can actually equip this card in this deck. In most decks, remember I always say between Improvised Shield and Handheld Blaster. Yes, I'm probably going to say this every time I come to this card, that you're probably never going to equip them. But in this deck, you actually could equip it, because if you don't have any other weapon, you could play this and get an extra flip off the top of your deck for your Battlefield Legend to potentially hit an action, and have more options at actions you want to use off of your flips. But otherwise, just a double blue icon. You need so of course got all 6 double blues in here to use for your defense. Of course, Flame War is going to help protect your guys, and go from there. So yeah, 3 Handheld Blaster. Next up we have 3 Sturdy Javelin. So this is the reason why Plasma Burst got replaced pretty much. It's a white icon card. Sturdy Javelin is a great card. It's really cool on Optimus because the weapons actually aren't I don't want to say the focus in here because, again, Sabotage Armaments is everywhere. But what's really nice about this is if you do have to flip Optimus back to his, of course, Flame War can't wear because she's specialist. But if you put this on Optimus, you could actually use him for his melee mode. Remember, in his alt mode, in his truck mode, he is a melee character, and in his bot mode, of course, that's where he's ranged. So if you do have to flip him to his alt mode to grab an action, you can keep this on him for that turn, and he'll still have 8 attack. So he'll have the same attack that he has in his bot mode when he's attacking, and that 3 defense, defending pretty well, or a lot better, obviously, than he is in his bot mode. So there's that. And but usually you throw this with Mirage, or you even throw it with Optimus if you don't have any other options. And one of the biggest pluses about this card is it beats Sabotage Armaments. The ruling on this card is, the opponent, your turn player taps their character to attack and declare their attack first on the defender, and they'll throw this card immediately once that attack is declared. Then the opponent will defend, and then you go through all the other steps that it is for, attacking and flipping battle cards or activating whatever secret actions. But yeah, so this card is very good. 3 of it's pretty much is a Plasma Burst, so it was an easy replacement to take that card out. And of course, Plasma Burst just didn't make the cut because of space issues, and I did want to stay at 40 for this deck. Next up, we have 2 others, Arm Hovercraft. Again, space issues, but the third one is in the side deck, so we'll talk about it again once we get to the side deck. Still a very good card against all wide decks. If you don't like direct damage, you don't understand why dealing 1 to every character is good, think of it like this. Think of it, so this deck also, by the way, evolved to 37 health versus 34 health, with Hot Rod being, 10 health. The thing is, look at your opponent's health pool as one giant health pool. This deck has 37. If you play Arm Hovercraft on me, now I'm down to 34 total health. Look at it like that. So taking 3 health off my entire health total is a lot. Dealing that 1 to every character, I've said this a couple of times, and I've kind of skipped it here and there, but I'll say it here now. Remember those times where you have your opponent that had that character at 1, I remember those times where you just missed by that one. That one is always what makes everyone so salty when you miss that attack or whatever the case is, and you just missed by that one. Or imagine you got a character to 1 and you didn't have direct damage yet, and then when everybody stands on the wheel turn, they attack with that character that has the 1 and make you waste one of your important attacks or one of your characters you really don't want to waste it into that character. You know you're gonna kill it, but it's such an inefficient attack that you're just tight about it. You're like, damn, that sucks. I wish I had direct damage. I wish I didn't have to attack it. Well, cards like this, cards like Zap, all those cards, again, is something when I first started this game that I underestimated heavily. So if you're a new player watching this, welcome to the channel, first of all. Cards like these and direct damage in general are your best friends. Almost every deck needs direct damage. I want to say, unless their character has direct damage built in, and even then, decks like Octone is just a direct damage powerhouse. The entire deck is just insane. Every turn, somebody's probably taking some damage somehow, some way, whether it's through Octone's flip, etc., etc. But yeah, so only a 2-of because space issues, but it's good against very wide decks. It's good against most decks in general. Against 2 tall decks, it's not that good. I mean, it's 2 damage is still 2 damage, but this is not you really want to see this versus wider decks, and it's always a feel good when you draw this card. Keep in mind, you're able to put this on any character, and you can still get the +1 attack, because it says when this is put on a ranged character, deal 1 damage to each enemy. So you don't have to, but you're able to. Next up, we have 2 Energon Axe, very powerful upgrade. This card gives +3 attack, and you can only put this on first of all when it's damaged. It has Pierce 2 and a +3 attack. Very strong card. Put on any of your characters. Of course, this is very weak to sabotage armaments, but it's still a very strong card when they don't have it, or when you are playing against an orange deck to get that threshold of killing their characters off. This card is just very good. And outside of sabotage armaments, when they have hidden fortification or all this tough or anything, at worst you're getting in for 2. Combine this with the bigger they are on Optimus. Optimus will be a 13 Pierce 6 minimum going into any of those bigger characters that we talked about earlier. It's a very good card. Next up, actually just 1 Ion Blaster of Optimus Prime, and I'll show this with Noble's Blaster. I took the one, I've been playing 2 or 3 of this card forever, but talking again with the VS boys this past weekend, I think Dan cut to 1, so I'm just like, 1? But then I guess as soon as he said it, I'm like, okay, that makes sense, because you know what, sabotage armaments is everywhere, so it's just not as strong as it once was. You feel real good when you play it, and then just to run into a sabotage, and you're like, damn. So just overall, and at least having a guaranteed weapon to still put on him later on, and because it's a green through the Noble's Blaster, and the Pierce is so much more relevant than it ever was before. We really kind of just ignored the Pierce when this card first came out in Rise of the Combiners, but now this card is even more relevant with this Pierce. If you're playing against Shockwave, or you're playing against a deck that has another Decepticon that has more stars than Optimus, really probably just Shockwave right now that's relevant. Again, this and the bigger they are, still Pierce 6, just like the Energon Axe. So you're getting in for a lot of nice damage. And again, space was one issue. That's pretty much my reason for a lot of reasons why it's a lot different than the original 3Y Prime deck, as it should be, with evolution. But anyway, so yeah, just 1. It hurt me to take it down to 1, but then at the same time, again, because of space issues, I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can cut this to 1. I see the reasoning of another player, and I'll go from there. So just the 1. Still hurts to say to this day. Next up, we have the card that'll actually help this deck do a lot better, and that's in a meta with these huge health characters is Energy Pack. So I talked about this at the beginning of the video. This card will actually be nice to, of course, put on your Optimus Prime. He's the only one you're able to put this on, and have that 18 health. Now, he's not able to heal anything else outside of that, but he has so much defense. Well, not so much defense, but the deck is so defensive between hidden fortification and being able to get back hidden fortification. So like there'll be turns where you have this, and it's like, okay, well, you get back hidden fortification, and then now he's in his alt mode, and if he has a weapon, he's still attacking for 8. And with the hidden fortification set, he's probably not taking any damage, if very very little damage that turn. So I'm playing 2 because I really want to try to see 1. I can't afford to play 3 again because of space issues, and it is an orange icon. So I do have a good bit of cards that aren't. I think I have 5 whites. I think about 29 or 28 cards in the deck are blue. So that's pretty much the formula that I used for I had to go back to my Origins deck list actually and see what I even played there. And I think I played only 27 blue. And the other cards were either whites or not, oranges or whatever, like Treasure Hunts and Sparring Gears or whatever. But this card I think is very important. I don't think I'm able to. I can't afford to play 3 without going up to 41 or 42, and I'm not doing that for this deck. So yeah, if I can find one of these, it's all good. And obviously if I can see both of these and they reprocess one, cool. Let's play another one the next turn. And your Battlefield Legends is a respectable 18 attack or 18 health all of a sudden. And I'd say you look at him as a threat and respect him at that point in this kind of meta. So that's the idea with it, and hopefully I can find one. If not, I mean, it is what it is. Again, you're still very defensive, and hopefully you can fend off attacks enough before you get the victory. And of course, if you don't see one of these energy packs, or you don't want to play it early, of course, a very good starter card, especially when you go in second against aggro decks, or against you side this out against aggro most of the time, but against blue decks is a Matrix of Leadership. So Matrix of Leadership is always cool to equip on your first turn, and then attacking with your Mirage. He'll have 4 Pierce 1. Get in for that 1 damage. Helps you on attack and defense with the icons, and that's about it for that. And of course, again, you can put this on any of your characters, but it will only give the +1 attack at that point. It will not spread the +1 and Pierce 1 at that point. And last but not least, we have 2 sparring gears. This was an easy addition. Like I missed the rock paper scissors armors, like reflex circuits and sturdy armor and covert armor, which nobody ever plays. But this card is your go-to armor to get. It's that War of Attrition with Bashing Shield, where they have their Bashing Shield, but you have this. So they're both orange-green armors, and hopefully you can have this in an espionage to get rid of their Bashing Shield, and they don't get another one. Or you can play this and play security checkpoint, and the longer you can have your armor stick, the longer your characters are going to survive, which obviously means they can battle back. And only 2 space is an issue. This deck is very defensive between the Flame War and, again, the secret actions and things like that. So you're able to kind of protect and manipulate your attacks pretty well with this deck. So just those 2. And that actually ends up rounding out the 40 cards. So I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile itself. But let's talk about the side deck real quick. So the side deck character, and something that I actually thought I'd never see, Lord Megatron. So it was 2 days ago. It was General Optimus Prime, and that's what it was. So, of course, remember we started with Nemesis Prime. Nemesis Prime was the original teammate for Optimus Prime, called Double Prime, Too Tall Prime, which is probably my favorite deck of all time, just because that's the first deck I ever started with, by the way. So that deck had 30 health between the 2 characters, but we sacrificed 2 health for an extra defense, but in another 2 less attack in General Optimus Prime. But the whole point was to be able to comfortably be able to attack with Optimus on your first turn, giving Bold and Tough 1 to him. He pretty much is a Flame War for the deck. Yes, you only have 28 health. I don't even want to know if I really want to go as far as saying it was more powerful. This is better than Nemesis Prime, because you lose 1 defense, but you have 16 health, and you have 2 more attack in his alt mode, and then he flips and then he has 7 attack, and if you do deck out, he's at 10 attack. So Nemesis Prime still might be the homie, but I just never gave it a chance once I saw him. And then you obviously need to incorporate a star card in your side deck when you do play this. I think the star card of choice for me would be Energized Field. So if you do still decide to play this over Lord Megatron, I recommend maybe EMP Wave, probably not. One of the double blues though. So EMP Wave, probably Energized Field is probably my number 1, and then you have, what's the last one? Heroic Resolve. So you could play Heroic Resolve as well, because remember, you have 11 and 13, you're 24 stars. But talking about the evolution of health, 17 health, 1 less star than Optimus Prime, 31 health total. So this beats out Nemesis Prime in every way. So actually, Nemesis Prime is actually out. I take that back. I just contradicted everything I just said. Nemesis Prime is definitely out. The same amount of stars, 1 more health, 1 more defense, same attack, and randomly when your opponent's about to deck out, you still can flip to this mode and equip him with an Energon Axe or any weapons that you have or whatever, and deal a random 5 damage. So depending on how, you might not actually even get to that point, depending on what decks you side this against. And speaking of, so never go too tall, first of all, against aggressive decks like Bugs. You will never do this against Bugs. You actually beat Bugs as 3 wide. You don't ever want to go 2 wide against Bugs. Too Tall Prime actually always had a problem with Bugs as well. You always had to flip Prime and attack with Prime first, and hopefully hit one-shot stand, one-shot fall, Plasma Burst, leaving the battle or bigger they are. So you had 12 cards to try to kill Kickback on the first turn, and that wasn't always reliable, and if you didn't hit it, the game actually was probably over right then and there. And on the flip side, if you hit it, the game was probably won right there. But yeah, so the turn sequencing with this deck is, going back to side deck, you'll probably side deck against other 3 wide control decks, like potentially Shockwave, or potentially any blue decks. Control meaning, of course, blue decks usually. Definitely against like wider, like Pierce decks. So if you have like 4 wide or 5 wide Pierce decks or anything like that, or like 5 wide blue or 4 wide blue, this is the only time you're going to go into 2 tall. Against aggressive decks, you're shooting yourself in the foot by only having yourself 2 characters, and it's just not the same. And it's just the evolution of like cards and things like Reckless Charge and thing, you just don't want to do that. Like 2 Tall Prime was able to hold its own as a starting team, first of all, because there was no side decking at that point in time, and then there weren't cards like Reckless Charge. You did have Supercharge, so it was, Supercharge Grenade Launcher is still very powerful, but it was a lot harder to get rid of your armors on your guys. Like when you play body armor, it was a lot harder to get rid of the body armor if they didn't have ramming speed, because there was no bashing shield. I guess they did have Debility and Crystal, and the list goes on and on. But yeah, so 17 health, you got 31 health total. When you do attack with Prime first, on your next turn, you actually flip Prime back, grab a secret action or whatever you want to grab, and then you actually want to keep Megatron in this mode for a long ass time, actually. So they both have 3 defense when they're coming at you. Hopefully they don't take a whole bunch of damage. When they stand back up, you just repeat this process until your opponent gets close to decking out, and then flip Lord Megatron again. So that's it really to say about him. And again, I never thought I'd see the good and bad together like that. There is a version, I think, of course, not a thing, but a version of Autobot Megatron, apparently. So I'm excited to see if we actually get that as a card at one point, and hopefully we can play that with Battlefield Legend. But this is kind of how I look at it, good and evil joining forces. So first up in our side deck, we're going to talk about War of Attrition. So War of Attrition is a card that I looked at and was like, that's cool, but I kind of compared it to the rest of the green icon cards that say when you play all 3, do something cool. But this one actually has a lot of merit. Again, I was talking to a lot of players throughout the weekend that put me onto this card, and I kept thinking about it more and more. You kind of get influenced when people talk to you about some things. But this one's really legit. So can't fit it in the main deck. Don't even know if it's worth it in the side deck, because you actually want to have this card in with a deck that can draw a whole bunch of cards. This deck's draw power is very weak. You do have the Mirage flip, but outside of that, you don't have any draw. I did have a work overtime actually over the Swerve in the main deck, by the way. So if you do not like the Swerve, I would recommend taking out the Swerve for a work overtime. The work overtime just isn't in the deck at all right now, and I'm testing the Swerve. But that was the only really draw power that you had. So one of the reasons why I say you want to have draw power with decks like these is because it puts a lot of pressure on your hand to every time you see one of these have to trade something out of your hand for it. And it may be okay depending on what your hand is. Of course, handheld blasters you get rid of with no problem, and other cards depending on whatever the situation is. And at worst, if you have 2 of these in your hand, you can easily just grab the third one back with Optimus Prime's alt mode effect, and there you go. So it doesn't put that much pressure on your hand, and it's going to take testing. This is new to me in terms of the side deck. I've only been playing game 1s with the deck, so we'll see. But 3 War of Attrition, doing this ass backwards. If you don't know what War Attrition does by now, for the people that don't know, when you play it, your opponent chooses one of the characters and deals 1 damage to it. And you may play another War of Attrition if you have another one. So if you play all 3 in one turn, able to heal 3. Don't mind me. So yeah, your opponent deals 1, then 1, then 1. You don't show all 3 at the same time unless you just kind of, they only have 1 character. And then it really is like a kind of a one-shot stand, one-shot fall, but, they take 3 and you heal 3. So the heal is what's really great about this, and it's direct damage, so very good. And I expect to see a lot more play coming up in the upcoming tournaments. So next up, we have System Reboot. System Reboot is a card that gained popularity for me in the last couple of days over work overtime in this deck, simply because of cards like War of Attrition. It's really good. You really only put this in against Shockwave and the combo deck, the Springer combo deck, because the Springer combo deck has a million cards in hand. You want to cut them back down to 4 to kind of slow them down. Of course, this deck can be potentially very good against it because you can get back security checkpoint at will and play that security checkpoint. But of course, you can also just play this card and reboot both players' hands. But yeah, so against Shockwave, I'd rather have this than work overtime again, because Shockwave is actually starting to play War of Attrition, and including mine. My Shockwave deck recently added them, and yeah, so this will get rid of the War of Attritions out of their hand, and like, so let's say they have 2 in hand, that kind of ruins them until they reshuffle their deck, and they won't be able to heal that 3. So that's really all there is to it about that card. Not too much more to say about it. I was actually about to break down a philosophy, unnecessary philosophy about the card. So 2 System Reboot. Next up, we have 1 Squish Them Like Bugs. This card was an immediate replacement for me for Photon Bomb. If you guys remember, if you played the 3Y and Prime deck or familiar with Photon Bomb and the power it had against aerial bots, this card was Photon Bomb deals, it's a blank icon card that deals 2 damage to every character. So having just 1 in your hand was very powerful with Optimus Prime Battlefield Legend, because you play the 1, yes, you take 2 damage on your guys, but remember, Superion has 39 health total. The 1 additional health when you combine, he gains, he has 1 health at least. But yeah, dealing 2 damage to every single character early game is 10 damage total on Superion. So now he's at 29. And then Optimus can flip and grab back the Photon Bomb. You Photon Bomb again, the game's probably over there, because they're not going to combine for 5 turns, until they get all their characters in bot mode. But on top of that, though, or furthermore, regarding that, Aerobots isn't even I won't say relevant deck right now. It's still in the meta, but it's more of like a tier 3 deck. When I get to my tier list, I'll talk more about that. So it's not really a top tier deck, but it's still out there and it's still good. It still can be good. And who knows? Maybe there's a build out there that actually is pretty solid. But the thing is, just against these big health characters like Galaxy, Optimus Prime, and Shockwave, especially stealing your hand. Aerobots always had an issue with Sentinels stealing their hand and things like that. So kind of deviating a little bit. I'm digressing too much from the original topic, but this card is good against decks like I probably wouldn't side this against aggressive decks, but against like wide blue decks, or like if you're the biggest guy so if you're playing against a I don't know, a guy that has a 12-star big guy and then 2 other guys or whatever, or 4 other guys, then I'd probably side this in as well. But this is the replacement for Photon Bomb. So yeah, if you have one of your characters that second time I'm doing this, you choose one of your characters. And when it does attack damage this turn to an enemy, you were able to, if it does attack damage to an enemy that has fewer stars in it, you deal 1 damage to each character that has less stars than that character. And next up, we have one more the bigger they are. Of course, this card would be great. A great addition to add in over the leap into battle against, the big bad deck, Shockwave, etc. Because even when you flip Optimus back to his alt mode and you play this in his alt mode, yes, you're not getting a huge attack that turn, but he's still 8 Pierce 4, and you get in for that Pierce 4, and that's what matters when these guys have so much defense, Flame Wars out, etc. Next up, we have one Scoutchos Blaster. This card is in here solely for when I side deck into Lord Megatron. This could be considered a waste of a side deck slot. It could be something else. It could be another Energon Axe. But I feel like at least since it's a green, I can get it and have it guaranteed on Megatron. And Megatron being an 8/3 is nothing to shy at. So having this one and then the Noble Blaster on Optimus, they're both 8/3s in their alt modes at minimum. So, and then at worst, I won't say at worst, but also you could when you do flip Megatron to his bot mode, he'll be 6 attack, and there you go. And next up, we have one more Arm Hovercraft. This card is in conjunction kind of like with Squish Them Like Bugs, but of course you will side this in against Aerobots. You'll side this in against wide aggro decks like the Airstrike Patrol aggro deck. You'll side this in against multiple decks. I feel like I really want to find main deck space for it again because I just always kind of want this card. But again, space was an issue, so side decking and bringing it in if I really have to. And then last but not least, one more Disarm. So the Disarm, of course, is good against those control decks. When they have their big guy loaded up, you bounce all their stuff back and hopefully get in for a big attack with Prime and go from there. Alright guys, long ass deck profile, a whole bunch of talking, but I still hope you guys enjoyed my new 3Y Prime deck. I'm actually pretty excited for the deck, or it just might flop and I might get my ass kicked this weekend. Speaking of getting my ass kicked, I got my ass kicked last weekend. My whole week, I played the Dead End, Galaxy Prime, and Flame War deck, and long story short, I started out 1-0, and then the rest of the day snowballed because I played against Bixler. And he was playing a newer version with, I think, Barrage. And he was playing 4 wide of the Airstrike with Barrage over General Optimus and, 4 wide from the EI. But I won the dice roll, and I said I'll go first. Why? Why the hell did I decide to go first? I don't know. But with the simple math, 4 against 3, if you go first, even if you are playing Flame War, when you flip Flame War and attack with Dead End, they get an attack. They still have 4 guys. Or no, he was playing 5 wide on top of that, so this is even more horrible. Whether they're playing 4 or 5 wide, you probably definitely want to go second. Because what ends up happening is he ends up getting 3 attacks on my best character, because I'll be tapped before he does, and then when he gets to go, he still has 3 attacks to go into me. The 5 versus 3. Same with even the 4. If he was playing General Optimus, it'd be the same deal. You don't want General Optimus and Tailwind to get 2 big attacks in on your best guy, because most likely that turn they're going to have a Passion Shield saved up, along with maybe a weapon already played on one of their characters loading up for the next turn, and just really wreck your face. So that was my first mistake. So what ended up happening was, simply put, the game was kind of decided based off of that simple decision, that simple bad decision. So I lost game 1, and game 2 I won because I went second, and my Prime, I won't say barely took any damage, but honestly this wasn't even close. And then game 3 lost again because I went first and he got multiple attacks on my guy. I wasn't able to. I think I got some decent security checkpoints, but they weren't as good as I got them in the EI. If you ever watched this video, he'll be like, yeah. But anyway, Yeah, so that's just how that went. And so when I ended up losing that, it just snowballed the rest of the day because I should have been 2-0. So I should have been more geared towards potentially making the top 4 because I'm pretty confident I would have won one of my next 2 rounds. Even though, if I would have lost one, I'd have been 3-1 and still most likely get into the top 4. So I ended up playing Dan and Scott after that and lost both of those. Dan kicked my butt. Kind of got a little bit of revenge from Origins, just a little bit. I'm joking with you. You got to get that on the big stage next time, right? But yeah, so I played against Dan and then Scott as well with the Jetfire deck, and Dan played, of course, the Galaxy Prime. And yeah, I just got my ass kicked. So saying all that to say that this Battlefield Legend deck actually might not even be good, I don't know. But I feel good about it, so we'll see what happens. And I'll be trying, since it's going to be at my home store especially, I'll definitely won't mind bringing my equipment and trying to get some gameplay. I love commentary, and I haven't done commentary on my videos in a while. So with that, that's going to be the end of 2019. That's it. Thank you guys for all being here with me. It's been a ride, and the ride is nowhere near over. We're just getting started. I've had a great first year in this game that I have in Yu-Gi-Oh! And just in general. I guess I learned a lot of my card playing prowess from Yu-Gi-Oh! And leading up to this. So I'm very blessed to have the year that I've had. I got 2 first place finishes. I got a first place at Origins 2019. I have a top 8 finish at Gen Con. I don't know exactly where I placed that after that, but I know I placed at least in the top 8 there at Gen Con, the Open, and then I got first place at PPT Ohio, and then I got 3rd place officially, top 4 at the first World Championship tournament at the Energon Invitational. So that's a pretty good damn first year, and doing it all on my own. If I can do all this on my own, it's just like I can just imagine, and I'm so excited to see what I can do with the team. Got some announcements and some surprises and things like that to talk about leading into next year, and got some things in the works. I got not necessarily a podcast, but a new segment I want to do on my channel that I talked about before called the Champ Camp. So bars. All the champions in the game, and every champion. This is just going to be a reoccurring thing as long as I'm in the game. And maybe I might even, if I were to quit a couple years from now, and I still might just bring random, the champions from the game in the future onto the channel to talk about their experience with their tournament that they won, how they felt when they won, just a whole bunch of different questions, maybe some potential strategies and things they think about when they're playing, all those good things, so you can get into the mind of the champions and hopefully definitely become a champion yourself one day. So with that, the giveaway announcement I did say would be before the end of the year, but I think it'll just be better to start it into 2020. So be looking forward to the giveaway. It'll just be pretty cool. It'll show me at the store getting some packs, and I want to make it funny again. I've said this before, but hopefully it'll be funny to me, so I'm gonna laugh. So it'll just be really cool to just do that and kind of do like a little vlog of me getting the packs. And but the biggest thing you can do to help me is like this video if you enjoy the content. It's long content, so if you're at work or something like that, just realize this channel I do a lot of talking. So just kind of accept that as you enter this channel. But if this is your first time, welcome to the channel. Consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Oh, yeah. And more great things come from me, in 2020 and 2020 vision. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. We got the announcement for Wave 5 coming up in April. And, all right, I'm going to stop talking and get up out of here. You guys know what it is. You guys have a happy New Year, happy holidays. Hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. I know I did. Me and my son's first Christmas, so that was fun. And going into the new year, whole bunch of stuff to come. Guys know what it is. You guys know what it is. This is your homie S. Dot, Death TF, heading out. Happy New Year, guys. Peace.